So today we'll be looking at objects. We'll be discussing the connections between objects, and then we will come to the idea of classes. However, if any one of you knows any other programming language, I will have to disappoint you first, because classes in JavaScript are not the same as in some other object-oriented programming languages, like, for example, C#, Java, whatever it is. So classes can be thought of in JavaScript as some kind of wrapper around the normal objects, and objects, as we know in JavaScript, are key value stores. However, their functionality is slightly enhanced to do some other powerful stuff. But classes are not always some kind of wrappers around the objects. However, we're not interested with the details that much. What we're interested in, we'll be looking at how to define a class, how to use a class constructor, what is a class constructor, as you will be using this a lot when you do Cypress, because that's how you do things in Cypress. I think that's the approach that we're doing things when writing Cypress at Service Titan, right? Creating some classes, some properties, methods, etc. Really. Okay, but let's start with the repetition of yesterday's lesson. Okay, so I'll be going with a couple of examples, and we'll see if we know how the code works. So now, if I have a set timeout, what does set timeout do? Who can explain? What does set timeout do? It's the same question. I'm just waiting for someone to answer the question. This is nothing new. If you have done yesterday's homework, you should know what it is. I'm just asking to see if I have an answer. Don't be shy. Pardon?
Do right?
It delays the execution of whatever we write in this callback. However, you should know that it is not a guarantee that this code will be executed in exactly 2 seconds. There might be some delays because the call stack, there might be something in the callback queue, there might be something in the call stack. So this is not a guarantee that the code inside this callback function will be executed in exactly 2 seconds. So just be aware of that. Okay, so let's do a console.log hello. So what this does, it will just simply console log hello in 2 seconds. However, if you have searched set timeout or looked it up, you might have came across this. Okay, but let's start with a very simple example. Console.log world. Okay, so can anybody tell me what will be logged first? What is the order of the logs here?
2 seconds, hello.
World, and after the second hello. And why is that?
Because in time it goes to wait for PI, waits for the stack comes before the head crossing word goes to close stack, or you write for the final enters the stack comes, the time it goes to queue, and the event looks like this tool called stack.
Yeah, that's a perfect explanation how these few lines of code work. So if I would do the save, would precisely see world logged first and hello second. However, what happens when I do this?
We'll see. Same.
Why is that? But in this case, what I say, wait for 0 seconds, which means kind of immediately do something, and then do this. Why should it work the same way?
Because the stack should be empty in order event loop can push. Yes?
The stack should be empty in order for what? Sorry.
In order event loop can push the callback to the stack.
That is correct. However, that doesn't have to do anything with the order. What you said is correct.
Timeout at first house to web API. This moment constant look exactly.
But we have a zero there. It means, it literally means do not wait for anything, right? So zero delay. Just do the thing. Why should it work the same way?
Because it's in SCA, I think timeout will go to baby.
Correct. So you were correct. Both of you are correct. In any case, set timeout will be going to the web API. It is a web API, so it does not go to the, well, the way it works, when we're on line 9, we are calling a function called set timeout. So what happens there, we have that set timeout function in the call stack. Now, when we're in the call stack, we see that this is a web API. And then we go, and we know that we should have waited. And then we go to the web API, and we schedule our function, our callback function to run there. However, the execution of the code stays basically the same if we had this. What it means is we simply we'll be pushing this into the callback queue. However, in the call stack, we will be having our synchronous code, and what we have in the call stack will execute first. And when the call stack it becomes empty, then we will be pushing stuff from the callback queue. That's why it basically would work the same. But again, what is the delay here? If we say, I don't want to delay, just do this right now. So how does this work?
Do this as soon as when the stack is empty again.
We can interpret it as soon as possible, because for sure we don't have a zero delay on a timeout. Okay. Even for it kind of differs from engine to engine, but usually it's around, I think, 11 or 16 milliseconds. Okay. Even if you say zero, the engine itself will not be able to make a delay smaller than 11 to 16 milliseconds, if I'm not mistaken. It depends on the engine. So anyways, even if we say do whatever code is in this callback function right now, I don't want to delay, the engine will disregard that because it still needs some kind of delay because it's running the event loop, whatever. There are some stacks. It needs to take care of stuff. So we do not have a zero delay on a set timeout. Okay, fair enough. So what does this code do? What will I see in the console?
Same sequence. ABC.
Should have been C. So I'll say ABC, right? Now what happens when I do this? Set timeout, callback function. I move this there. I say you wait for 500 milliseconds. And then I say set timeout. This function. I'd say you wait for 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second. So this is half seconds. All let's do is 1 second, 2 seconds, and then I say set timeout. I move this in here, and I say you do not wait for anything. Execute as soon as possible. So how does this code work?
I think it will work the same way with ABC.
And why?
Because the first time the console log this part is moved to the API, it waits for 1 second. After it is moved to queue and after pushed to the close stack, after it there it will log console log and call the second set timeout. It will also move to web API, and the same process will go on for the rest.
Yep. So as we are nesting everything inside in one of each other's callback, So what this means, exactly the way Hofstad explained. So we'll be moving this callback into the callback queue. Let's skip the web API part, whatever. So we'll be pushing this callback into the callback queue. The callback queue is now the call stack is empty. So then we push this callback from callback queue to the call stack. We execute it. A is logged in 1 second. And as we call the second timeout only when we are in the first callback, we will not have anything scheduled before this callback, the kind of outer callback is called. So that's exactly what happens. We console log this, then we schedule the second callback, which is this, right? In 2 seconds, we will have this console logged, and then we schedule the third callback. 0 basically means as soon as possible, do the callback, execute the callback as soon as possible. And as you have seen, the BC were kind of logged pretty much simultaneously with a slight delay, okay? So engine was able to execute this code as soon as it was possible. I was able to notice the delay. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but no, it was less delay right now, but in the previous example, there was like slight delay. So it was noticeable. Okay, fair enough. I think that's it with the yesterday's topics. The purpose of yesterday's topics was to basically introduce you to asynchronous code. If you know how the set timeout stuff works, by the way, these type of questions are the questions they usually ask during interviews because they consider these as tricky. Of course, if you don't know that there's a web API, there's a call stack, there's a callback queue, how things get scheduled, how it works, usually you answer incorrectly because you do not understand what's the order of execution here. And for those who do not understand that's what callback hell means, because everything is asynchronous. You will have to kind of keep everything in your head. Now we're scheduling this, we have this in the callback queue. Now we'll be executing this because it's in the call stack, etc. So that is what is called callback hell, having just too much asynchronous stuff going on kind of simultaneously. But of course, usually the interviewers also spice it up with some promises. And if we're talking about some Node.js interviews, we have process.nextTick. NextTick is a very similar kind of function to the set timeout. However, it's also some Node.js stuff, and we don't have that in the browser. So imagine you have set timeout, you have promises. Promises work slightly differently. They have their own queue. It's called a micro task queue. So, and then there is slight difference between the priorities, what gets executed first. So when you mix set timeout with promises, and then you mix that with also the nextTick was the Node.js analog function of set timeout, it kind of starts to get really messy because there are some differences between in the priority of these functions, and you really need to know how asynchronous code works. In Node.js particular, I was talking about Node.js, and Node.js is the environment where you run your JavaScript code on the server side. So when we move to that ground, to Node.js, there is much more stuff going on. However, in the browser, it's the call stack, it's web APIs, it's promises. Still, we have a micro task queue. We will not be kind of doing that kind of examples. We have a promise, we have a set timeout, what logs first, what works first. Doesn't matter. This is an accelerated course. And my purpose here is to just know that at the basics you understand how asynchronous code works. Okay, cool. Okay, so maybe we can start talking about objects and then kind of seamlessly move to classes. So what is an object again? What was the simple explanation I gave you? What is an object? Yeah, it's a key value store. You have the keys. Let's define an object. person. Okay. Now, what can a person have? A person can have a name, right? And have an age, 24. Can have an address, and they can have many other properties. Okay. However, to basically explain what an object is in Java, so we can say it's a key value store. So we have our keys, we have our values. Now, can a function be a value in an object? Yes, it can, because we've learned that in JavaScript, functions are simply values. You can pass around, you can put them in variables, you can pass them around, so you can do something like this. Speak. Okay. So what we do here, now this is a function, and as we'll learn the arrow function syntax, I'll be using arrow functions a lot, so object. So what we do here, we say console log lifetime. Okay. And the way I can now incorporate this function into my object would be to say speak, right? So this is my key, speak, and and then I write the name of the variable where we have the function. So again, speak. Can I write this shorter? Yes, it's just speak.
Only speak.
Yes. When the name of the key and the name of the variable match, you can just skip the colon and the variable name. And this is a new syntax, well, new for the last like 7 or whatever 8 years. Yeah, you can just skip the name of the variable. Okay, now let's say person. How do I access this function? How do I call this speak function? What should I write here? Okay, I will get the function. Then how do I execute the function? How does it? Yes, simple enough. Nothing complicated. This is what we know. Okay. But you know what? Let me actually move to normal function declaration. Console log Varta. Okay. Now, Varta, yes, it does what we wanted to do. So it just console logs Varta. Now, what if the name of the person changes? We should expect that, yeah, we should maybe give an argument, right? Say name, and instead of just logging Vartan, just log name, okay? And of course, our TypeScript, the TypeScript helps us out here, and it says that you should also specify an argument. Okay, Vartan1. So if we change the name, it will be changed here. Cool. However, there should be, it kind of, does this code look strange to you? This part? We say person.speak and then say person.name, but isn't there a way to maybe understand in this function when we say person.speak to kind of automatically get the name from the object? There should be a way. And that way is so-called this keyword. It's this keyword, the keyword this, when I say this, I mean in quotes. This keyword is one of the trickiest parts in JavaScript. One of the parts that they usually ask also in the interview questions, because again, as with set timeouts, as with asynchronous code, if you don't dig into the way it works, you will get confused very quickly. However, there are some rules, and if you know these rules, it's very intuitive. It becomes very intuitive to understand how the keyword this works. So in this, now in the scope of this example, what the keyword this refers to is our object. Now, what happens when I do something like this? Now, can you see TypeScript also helps us? Now, again, just another reason you should use TypeScript, because it can prevent issues like this. But for the sake of this example, let's suppress this error. Now, what I did, I simply switched the normal function declaration into arrow function. And if we disregard the error that TypeScript gave us, let's save it and let's see what happens. So we get an undefined. But why do we get an undefined if we have this function in our person object and we are doing a console log of this name? So we do have a name. So why is it undefined? Now, this is the biggest difference of arrow functions and normal function declarations. Okay, so you should be aware of the difference and you should be very careful. So in function, when you define a normal function, it will basically regard the scope when you say this name. It will regard the fact that that the function speak is called on the person. So it sees that you say person.speak, and it is a function declaration. So when you do person.speak, it knows that the value of this is person. Okay, so that's how the function works. Now, when we switch to the arrow function, now it doesn't care if you do person.speak. Okay, it refers to some outer scope, whatever global list value it is. And if we remove the suppression comment, you will see that TypeScript says property name does not exist on type of global list. So global list is a new concept added in one of the recent versions of the language. We don't care about this. Just think about it as some global context or whatever it is. And as we can see, the arrow function basically disregards the fact that it is in the person object and we are saying person.speak. So it basically disregards that. And now the keyword this does not contain the value of this object. It just refers to global something, whatever it is, we don't care. So be careful when you're working with objects and writing some methods in these objects and using this keyword. Now, however, let's see maybe if, no, let's not see that. That's probably just too much information right now. Okay, so now we know that there's a difference between functions and arrow functions. You had a question, what's the difference? So I said when we get the classes, we'll see the difference. And this is the biggest difference. And the second difference is that when you define a function declaration, you will have to use curly braces. But if I would say speak equals arrow function, I could simply do console.log is name. Okay, I can just simply skip the curly braces here. There's nothing else to do. Of course, this arrow function will return undefined. However, this function also returns undefined. So functionally, they are both the same. And this just looks shorter and then nicer to me. So I would do this if I wouldn't have the this keyword. Okay. So that's about that. Now let's talk about the connections between objects. Now, in the classical object-oriented programming languages, which I'm not that super familiar with, you can have these, blueprints, which are called classes, and you can create your objects based on these classes. So imagine the class is a blueprint, and you have the blueprint, and you then build your building on top of that blueprint. So classes are similar to these blueprints, and objects are these buildings, are actual tangible things that you can work with. You cannot work with the class that much. If you want to call a method like this, you will call that on the object itself. We're not talking about static objects. What static methods? What are static methods? We'll see, I think, tomorrow. But we're talking about normal objects, and the dot speak, we call that on the person itself, right? So no classes, no whatever. And in JavaScript, we don't have these object-oriented programming concepts kind of natively. It's slightly different. In JavaScript, it is called prototypal inheritance, or in another way, we can say OLOO, which expands as objects linked to other objects. So in JavaScript, you basically link objects together. You have some connections to the objects, but this is not the natural object-oriented way. The class syntax was introduced. When I said the class syntax, I mean this. The class syntax was introduced in 2015 to have some syntactic sugar. Syntactic sugar is something that looks different, but is kind of the same under the hood. And this allowed for people to write create some blueprints, then extend these blueprints. Right, so you have a blueprint for the building. Now you want to extend your building to add another building like near to that. So you kind of have to change your blueprint itself and then construct the building. So classes are these blueprints, and then we added this ability in JavaScript to extend these blueprints. Okay, so we know that we have objects, and we can link objects together. So what that basically looks like, it looks kind of something like this. So we can say name. Can we not write code here in a nice way? Okay, let's do this way. Speak function. No, it's just getting messy. So let's imagine we have two objects, okay? So in the first object, we have a property called name. Now in the second object, we have a method, a function. Functions in objects are usually called methods, okay? So when we say person.speak, we usually say we are invoking a method. It is a function itself, but the terminology is slightly different. Okay, so we have a function where the name of the person is Barkan, and there is another, an object, and there is another object where we have the method speak, which console logs the name, but we do not have the name in the second object, and we do not have the speak method in the first object. However, there is a way to connect these objects together, okay, like this. Now, when you connect the objects like this, and whenever we try to say, let's say this is person, and speaking person, okay? Now, when we say person dot speak, now what happens? When you say person dot speak, we try to access the speak key in this object. The engine will see that the key named speak does not exist in this object, but it sees that there is a link to another object. And it will follow the chain of all these links until it occurs the method that we're looking for. And in this case, it is called speak. So we access it here, right? We do not have the speak method here. The engine can see that. It sees that there is a connection between these two objects. This is the closest connection to our object, which is in the variable person. It follows the link. It comes to this object. It sees that there's a dot speak in there, and it invokes that function. And again, you can have multiple links. You can have many links. You can connect them together. Okay. You can even change the direction of the links, right? So you can say, now I want my person to go here, and I want these to point here. And when we move these somewhere here, what we get is something like this. So we basically changed the order of the links, right? So now speak person 2 and speak person. Now this was the latest speak, or rather age 25, 23, whatever. Okay. Now, since we added another chain in our links, right? So now our object person is linked to the speaking person, right? And now when we try to access the person.age, let's change code to this. Person. Now when we try to access person.age, we know, and the JavaScript engine also knows that there is no key called age in the object person, but it sees that there is a connection to speaking person 2, and there is a key called age. Okay. And of course, when it occurs, the key age, it stops there. It does not follow the links kind of endlessly. So if you would have kind of 10,000 objects connected together, which is possible, if your key is found in the third object, it will do whatever you want and stop following the chain. You do not kind of have a control of the engine following the chain. It just understanding that it works that way. So yes.
Can you have a note in your, can you have age or in the next thing as well? So age.
Yes, you can. Yeah, and the first one will be returned. You can. That's a good question. So you will be basically kind of shadowing the values. Okay, so that's usually called shadowing something. And so the question was, can we have age in here, age, and imagine the value is something else, 25. So it's basically different. Again, when we occur the very first place, the very first object in the chain where we have the key, that's what we will return. We will not be following it anymore. Yes. Yes. You can explicitly say this object links to this object links to this object, and that is the exact order that the engine will be do the loop. Okay, so this is basically how the OLOO works, right? It's not the classical object-oriented programming. It is called OLOO in JavaScript. Objects links to other objects. It is as simple as it looks. Okay, there is nothing complicated to this. You just have to know that there is a link between objects. If I don't have this property in this object, I will be looking up that property in the next object in the chain. If it is in there, I return that. If it is not there, we continue looking that key in all the objects in the chain. And if what happens, can you guess what happens if we do not have a key in any objects of the chain? Like, imagine I'm trying to access something like this. Person, there it is.
How did that?
Yes, it will just return like that.
Pull links into one object.
Pardon me?
Can we have, for example, person link?
No, that would be a completely different data structure, and that would not be an object. Okay, so you can have only one prototype of your thing. And if we would have that, it would just make JavaScript so complicated. So I'm grateful we don't have the second.
Use a constructor third one. Could you please visit the sequence here?
The question was, can we have this object to be linked to two other objects at the same time? So can we have something like this? Let me just draw it. That's why we have this. That's why I'm using this drawing tool, because it just makes visualizing stuff like this so simple. So the question, Aravik's question was, can we have something like this? You technically can, because we can do something like this, right? So we can define another object, const, I don't know, person 2, right? Name, Karen, whatever, Karen. And then we can say parent. Okay, and we can say that parent refers to person 2. Now no, this is not an inheritance. This is just another key value. Okay, so however, this is not the inheritance. So you can say person dot parent dot name, and this works. Yeah, but this is an actual key value in your object. This is not the prototype. I will show you that setting these links can be also done as a key in your object. However, it's a special key. It's not a usual variable name that you would use. There's a very special key that you can use to set these links to other options.
The same as creating nested objects.
Pardon?
This is the same as creating nested objects.
Yes, exactly. This is just a nested object. So to kind of simulate what you say, we can just have a nested object and then have the actual prototyping connection going on.
Or collision.
Sure.
Several like links can be, for example, the person is looking to speaking person 2. Speaking person can also look to speaking person. Still.
That's actually a good question. I haven't thought about that. That would be a circular kind of, some kind of dependency. I don't know what will happen there. We can try that after the break. I'm now really curious because I don't know what happens.
Being normal.
Maybe. I don't know.
That we should take the where is also needed one. Well, we take the same.
Yes, well, both of them are independent objects, so you can just simply say you link to this, then, and the other one links to that. But I've never tried it. So, okay, maybe let's try after the break. Now I'm really curious.
Are we curious? We try it.
Yeah, because we were into the whole case.
Sure. Okay. So any other questions regarding the visualization of how the links work? After the break, we'll see how to actually do that in code. Then we'll see that the lookup process works the same way. So if you say age on person, it will go to the person 2. It will grab the age, and if we would have age 25 in the speaking person, we would see that actually the value 23 is grabbed. So we do not continue in the chain. Okay, so let's have some 10 minutes of break, and then we'll continue with objects, and I'll come to the idea of classes.
With things like element and line receive, but with the very started trying.
No inheritance set as connection network Նայ, JavaScript-ում այս class syntax-ը որ կա, class ասենք person, կարաս extend անես, էդի extends, հա, ոբշում, եթե ունենայինք sense, չասում, այդ ուրիշ class ունենայինք, որ human-ա, հա, մյուսնել worker-ա, sense on JavaScript-ում չեն կարող, մենք ինքը բողոքել է, սելա չես կարա երկու class-ից extend անես, այդ գալիս այն իդեային, որ այս օբյեկտից այն օբյեկտ մենակ մի հատ link կարող ինչպես տրանսուր։
Was in encapsulation unsplit, but without started coming with the thing. All the internet all worked fast. I said my
Նայ, OLOO-ն OLOO չի։ Նայ, OLOO-ն OLOO չի։ Հիմա այդ OLOO-ի կոնցեպտները անելու համար մենք դի class գրենք։ То есть это ինկապսուլացիա ասած այլի ոչ այնց ես ելնեմ ես ինչ over չգիտեմ որ abstraction ինչ է, ինչ այն ինչ է։ Իմ համար JavaScript-ում շատ բարձ ուղղակի օբյեկտների մեջ կան connection-ներ, ու всё, հիմա թե class index-ով գրում ենք x, հիմա որ գրում եմ x-ն, պրոստը այս օբյեկտը կապում է այն օբյեկտի հետ։ Հիմա որ այնտեղ մեթոդ եմ սարքում, դրսից ոչ իման չեմ օգտագործում դառնում է encapsulate արեցի, ոնց որ նույն ձևով ես օբյեկտի մեջի դրսի որ value չօգտագործեի, նույն բանն է դառնում։ Բայց իմ համար տենց տարբերություն չկա։ Այս վերջերս օրինակ բան են ավելացրել, native private property-ներ են ավելացրել, առաջ JavaScript-ում չկար։ Հենց native կարող ես այնց անել, որ քո property-ն լինի private։ Առաջ դες բան չկար։ Վերջերս են ավելացրել։ Հենց որ այդ OBAG-ն այդ բազային այդ բլոկները հələ ավելացնում, դա գալիս է։
Excuse-me, this wait, so
Հա, տեսնում եք, որոշ։
by Louis դեր կոդային կապը չեք անցել, չէ՞, թե ոնց է կապում արվում ոնց որ object մեկ-ի։
Դա չեն գալսան։ Դա կաս։
Ուզում եմ եկել հարցնել այս parent-ին, հա, իրականում այդ inheritance-ի բանում էլ է, Java-ում էլ է, դες չես կարող մեկից ավել class-ից inherit անես։ Այդ նույն բանն է, ամոնց հասկացա այստեղ էլ։ Դերևներում ուզում ենք հարցնել այս person get parents-ը, եթե տենց property չունի, չէր դա, որ no such property ոնց որ սովորաբար է, թե դա
Undefined undefined։
Հա, իսկ ինչի է, դեպքում չի ասում տենց property չունի։ Սովորաբար տենց էր չէ գրում object։
Անցան չի գրում, չէ։ Դա class-ատորի դեպք է։ Երբ որ դու ուզում ես այդ property-ը որպես function կանչես, ասել է օրինակ undefined-ի վրա չեմ կարող սա կանչեմ։ Կամ undefined-ի վրա որ get ինչ-որ բան անես, հա, այդտեղ ասել է որ չունեն, բայց մենք հիմա խոսում ենք օբյեկտների մասին ու չենք խոսում null-ի ու undefined-ի մասին։ Իրանք օբյեկտներ չեն էլի։ Որպես այդ
Դա merci։
Okay, it's got me coming up with some showing up. So
Yes, the door. Or ring. Jump understate. One. You think I had been in this fucking hand? So.
Just you want to something in the workshop and the boot and open front of the what's a little bit more.
Like they hand to think like I'm doing it.
Okay, well, welcome to the bill. No problem. We said, oh, welcome, this person's up here. You'll never proud. I should show you here. And like the person buying non bubbles. Okay. Hence, children wanted. Was in baby, yes.
Except the front jogging.
No, the one is to find out like this. Man, sit and sugar. The bleed started sleep. So look at another showing it and I'm sure there's something nuts maybe. But then now I'm to just. It's now more you did it, this could be. How teach you?
Well, Japan, but I see all of this and
It's doing and so and that's the they teach keepers. The got the chest case.
they eat almost for the chicken.
And so still live both there. She's something on the table. If she's here, Carol. Oh, but the necessity story eating. Shingle constantly but covered. As they wanted to people, but all obviously It's for me, people the both of tea, whatever to repeat the bottom at work. With even breast cancer, well, to the split for accident, you know, so I'd see it was in. Well, awful. The more recruits, then I'm just got it and got a church people want her book. So it's not enough to get some to know, speak to them one day, but called. Oh,
So you have on a thing upon keep forth chicken and curl.
right, no butter, about any butter. Let's go, Rachel, how possible go to cheap base for the on the house. We have to check raw on the sun till the force. Occupancy is matter was never the bullet public balls. Forced up that and how me feels for the always spark, but I see in my okay. And you know, this for similar to in that self on one toast to the kitchen spots. There are stairs on today. Then what's the fault? Now I'm such a tree bunny. Cherry said. Was it the kitchen we spotted milk? Maria, the chicken, if I can't, shit's stuff you just got to visit.
I'll just get people wishing treatments on roll till it is not.
But no, oh God, I'm getting some on it.
You were saying that.
Please stop that. Is the idiot with coverage called one? There's a trying one. But they get to know how long to get at it. So I mind with so friend that we open it as else two boats to find a drunk charm.
Bring it down.
Over. I need it cost them pushing go the butts and close.
Well, I'm letting it in.
Well, these teach travel, how like
Facing trouble and about it. It's a trouble part.
I know. Just about feelings. No, I think I help with signature. Makes you go all the nights and night shots at see about helpful, but it's just a good forward of romantic. Hell, I could help for the hollow vein and stuff.
It's just okay around and truck like it's not both good.
This half appears to be triple to you for we didn't think that I've ever helmet or woman. During between Stoffies, was that face? Ruler and given sophisticated. But it's true, born and love gone and these in fact was best later those kid a bit stuff. It's like you know, how is you know got where they will look. Either thing, what the terror is. On your computers. But all the stuff in my bed, see, and to spoil it in it. But look at it in my house. But for the first, I think Sharon goes at this too, and just as
You see this stuff.
excuse us, they do which on without under which you were what this should have. Yeah,
What you take about this with the order.
first one of for the make left of them to do it, for to be about Tessa much. And let's see, okay, as it should do such overall writers, or so the by me, that's all. Yeah,
And I see that present each different environment.
there's a ridiculous theory. How many heads a talk should have been sort of what to do themselves restful, which yes, you should. I didn't hear the oral tea. I'm frustrated there and the other let's go with that one. It's all. What's sick about you, Ted? Sorry. Yeah, this because what's sick about you, Ted? Oh, in the Genjaman and get this in JavaScript and jobs in Nick. So the door in the shanks, you do then sit up the retarding thing, get what Nissan come to us because my get losing business market. So, oh, dear, can't get this book on it. She get the measurement, get it. What are the sort of coin? This all in on it, there should give the company the other photo on me go that. On me go by 16 centimeters on the eye. It's what she's on same down. What's the crop? Well, a crop dealing with tennis school. Actually, is a small public sleeping to asking part. People so it is already the toast not even the do that, but we still quite it as the for the first one all of us. But all was playing. How about the music cakes? Mama, how old is the world? But his thumbs in, arms and still paying for the stay gun, paying for in the hospital auto. I don't keep both the phone with the car. But the gossip is like his nicodemus. Down. Yeah. Academia, but then it came out by the truth, but these are some of the Johnstein.
Drama.
So, someone, but sportsmen only did this.
Proporcjonalne bardzo z ryczastem, czemu podsumowanie standard million.
Yes.
Więc warhom podstawione są standard ręczą, bo to są grasa stosunek.
And with its band that way, just spin it.
Kiedy ile są ile standard jeszcze.
These sports converted.
Garbage domainere kстати. Edward has Microsoft Office Dogov Lava Excel of Chasuvalkel. Galasas Rayson jest ranowym silny karny sarką. Այսը կցանքում կարակ այն պատասխանները, որ ուղղակի ինչ-որ annotation-ներ պետք է այն ֆունկցիան գրես, թե comment գրես, normal code ստե գրում եք, ինքը highlight անում, hello, այս տնայները զս նորցում ասում, սենց եմ ուղարկել, դու կարակ export անեք որպես PNG ու ուղարկեք ինձ text page ինձ պրոստը պետք է ձեր explanation-ը տեսնել եք, ստեղ ես կարամ ընտրեմ, ստեղից ընտրում եք բան TypeScript, լեզում ընտրում եք TypeScript, ուշա, ինքը ստեղ կարակ սովորական JavaScript կոդ գրեք, ինքը նորմալ create անելով, դա ուղարկեք ինձ, սենց ես համ ձեր comment-ները կտեսնեմ, so I was just saying that this is the tool I use to create this nice homeworks for you, and colleague sent her homework in a Microsoft Word doc. So I was saying you can just use the same Ray.so tool. You just select language TypeScript. You can write your code there, normal JavaScript code. You can annotate the code with your comments or explanations and just export it as a PNG, send it to me, and I'll just read the code and the comments, and it's a win-win on the both sides. And what I'm doing there is really is my God channel.
Joking, I was both the standard men.
But she's on well.
Fat.
Now I'm going to take this same exact example. We're not going to change anything. Variable names, objects, contents, everything stays the same. Now we're going to translate this into the code and connect the objects in the same order as we have here. So let's start with the person. We already have the person, and now what we should do, let me just clean up the code here. We don't need the majority of stuff. So we have the name of the person was Barton. He doesn't have any other properties in the object. Second one is speaking person. I just copy paste it. Copy pasting code is the likelihood that developer if you don't know. And you will be doing this a lot. Okay,
Such improve.
fair enough. But it's just talking fast. Didn't want to see Oracle class on this Oracle question. That was just a simple pilot on a book. Oracle on a score that other the name as already. Okay. So let's do this. Before giving all the connections, let's just make sure we know how all this works. So what I'm going to say, I will be saying speaking person dot speak. what I will see on the terminal. Speaking person dot speak. What will I say?
Bartan we will see.
Are you sure?
Is the only fine.
You sound confident. Define. Undefined. Correct. Because what we do, we say speaking person dot. So, quick tip. When you have this in your function and you call the function with the dot like this in object, okay? So whatever object it is dot, whatever method it is, if in your method you have the keyword this, the value of this will always be this object, always, okay? Except of the case when it's the error function. We've seen that it's something different. So we have our normal function definition. By the way, you can define your methods also like this. This is the shorthand version for function definition in objects. We can also do this, again, undefined, so no difference. Both of these are the similar code. I will go with this one just to be more explicit. Okay, so we say speaking person dot speak. The value of this is, what is the value of this? Speaking person. Whatever we have in speaking person, that is the value of this. When I say dot speak, what is the value of this? If there was a speak method, empty object. So one thing you should remember about the this keyword, when you do something dot speak, call another method, whatever, if in your function, in your method, you have a this, and we have this dot operator to call that method, the this, in this case, right? The keyword this will always hold the value of your variable. There are 3 ways to override the this keyword. And you have used one of them in your yesterday's homework when you did the math.max.apply. That's why I asked, what is apply? Why did you use that? So that will be your homework to learn about them. I'll give you a couple of examples, and one of the examples maybe will be to also something similar to getting the maximum number or minimum number. But there are 3 ways to override the this keyword. One of them is something called dot call. Another one is something called dot apply. The third one is something called dot bind. So the way you do this is you have the dot call in your function. If you didn't know, functions are also objects in JavaScript, and they can have properties. For example, name or whatever it is, you can just create a variable, a key, and say hello. And in JavaScript, this is okay. However, we have some syntax error here because we do this, and TypeScript might not be happy with this code, but in JavaScript, we can do this. JavaScript is a strange language. So functions are also objects in JavaScript. Okay, so the only thing I would like you to remember from today's lesson, if you have something dot function call, the value of this is that something. In this case, we say speaking person dot speak. We call the speak method on speaking person. We have the this keyword in the speak function. So in this case, the value of this is our object. And that is exactly why, by the way, we can say this.h, and it will work because these refers to our object. I can do a console log of this. As you can see, it's our object. Okay, let me just really quickly copy paste this here and say speaking person dot to. as you can see now in speaking person.to, this keyword exactly refers to our object, which is in the speaking person.to. So again, when you do something dot function call, if you use this in your function, the value of this will always be whatever it is before the dot. Okay, so we've established that. Okay, so how about we start kind of connecting these objects together? So we would come to this part. Now let's start with maybe connecting person with speaking person.to. And it works exactly the same, right? So we're not connecting speaking person.to to the person, we're connecting person to speaking person.to. So in that sense, it's natural that I would need to modify my person object, not the other object. So the way I would do that is you would write something like this, but TypeScript might still complain because this is an obsolete way of doing what I'm doing. I will show you the modern way of doing afterwards. However, I'm just trying to show you an example here. So what I will do, let me just grab this and bring it here. And let me put this. Okay, so what I did, I just created a key called __proto__. This is a special key. Again, what I was saying, this is not a normal key name you would usually use in your object. So now what this says, what we say is your prototype, let's in plain English words, it will be person's prototype is speaking person.to, which means that person is linked to person.to. That's what it means. So this is how we establish the link from person to speaking person.to. So this is the link, the proto __proto. So this is the link. Okay. Now, cool. So what do we have in the speaking person? We have an H. So let's maybe try to console log the H. Person, I hope I don't get the number. Watch. I really hope. However, I get an error because we're talking TypeScript. Let's ignore. Thank you very much. So it's kind of, you see, it's you will meet TypeScript, but sometimes TypeScript just jumps under the train and it's hard. So by the way, what this comment means on line 26, TS add TS ignore means ignore whatever comes on the next line. So just yeah. So now this is JavaScript. Of course, it's an error in TypeScript because we actually don't have a key called age defining person, and it says you're trying to access a key which is not defining the object. So this is an error. I'm not going to allow it. So that's why we say let's ignore whatever you say. Okay, we're not interested in TypeScript right now, but we're interested in to see how JavaScript objects weave together and they work together. Okay, so as you can see, we actually do not have the age key defined in the person object itself. But now, since we have the connection between the person and the speaking person.to, and the key age, the value of which is 23, is defined in there, that is why we would get this. Now, if I would say hello, of course, I would get an undefined because I get hello. So when I say person.hello, of course, I will get undefined because first, the key person is not defined in the object person. And since we have the product connection, we will look it up in the chain, and up in the chain, the second, well, the connection is to the object, which is in the speaking person. We will not be able to find the key called hello in speaking person. And since there is almost nothing else in the chain, we just return undefined. Now
Sanjan, one question. If, for example, in this person object we had age, and we'll we'll have this proton, it will type the age of the person's object, yes, not the prototype.
right. And so if we would have age 30, right? So I just need to load age here. Okay, so the question was, if we actually have the key called age in the object person, well, what will it log? So basically, if there is an actual key called age, that's what we will basically grab. So it will be 30, not 23. It works exactly the same way you imagine it works. Okay, if you have your age here, again, age 34, you are trying to access .age on person. If there is a key called age in there, you get that. If you do not have, you move to the next object and change. Do you have it there? Yes, you return it. No, continue. So you do that process as many times as needed to get the actual value or to get an undefined. The algorithm is super simple. Okay.
One more question for me.
Sure.
But in case of this, nothing will change. I mean, if we call person dot name and person does not have name, it will bring it. But if we call this dot name, still this will be the person. I mean, on the object on which I'm calling that property, name property. I mean, this will not change even with proto. This is always the object in which onto which I'm calling the property.
That is correct.
Good.
So basically that answers your question. What if we have the age later in the keychain? As you can see, I'll do that explicitly for you to see, but as you can see in the original object, we have an age. We try to get the key age, we get that age, we do not get the value 23. It works exactly the same if I would remove this. Now, if we don't have the key age here, we'll look it up here. If we have the key, we return the value, we don't continue. So, but to just be kind of explicit, I'll do that. So I'm going to remove the age there. Now, person is linked to person 2. We have the key called age there. We get the value, right? And it's on top. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect the object speaking person 2 as we have in our diagram here. I'm going to connect speaking person 2 to the object called speaking person. And again, the way I do that is I write underscore underscore proto underscore underscore the special key. Since speaking person should link to speaking person 2 should link to speaking person, I'll just put the name of the variable there. And of course, I will have to rearrange my objects because we're talking constant. Okay, like this. Now speaking person 2 is linked to speaking person. And now what we do here, let's start from the bottom. Okay, so person is linked to speaking person 2. Okay, now we go to speaking person 2. Speaking person 2 is connected to speaking person. Exactly the same way we have in the diagram. Person to speaking person 2 to speaking person. Now, when we say person.age, we do not have the key called age in person. We move up to the chain, which would be speaking person 2. Do we have our key in there? Yes, we do. We return the value. We do not continue to age to the other object, and I can change the value so that you can see it. It's that way. So again, I said person.age. We don't have age person. We have the age in the prototype. We get the value. We're done. Super simple algorithm. Nothing complicated. If I remove the key age from speaking person, now the only object in the prototype chain that has the key called age is the speaking person, which is the last kind of object in our prototype chain. In this case, we'll then get 25.
So is the chain defined by the order in R file? By the orders there?
No, it's defined by this. I had to reorder the definitions because you cannot use a const or let variables before it is defined. So that was another issue. It's not defined by the order of this. Okay, so that order is defined by this proto key in the object only.
That it's clear another like speaking person for, and we can link like the same, for example, speaking person to and get the age like in the second case of the question, like multiple objects linked to one proto, like one object.
That's okay.
Yes.
There's a difference between these.
Yeah. Different. Now,
It is.
in the case of
Yes. Now, this is very different. One object linking to two different objects. Now, this is very different than multiple objects to multiple different objects linking to one object. So that's very different. Okay, because you have only one destination here, and you can do this.
biceps, I cannot be.
Correct. Yeah, you can link multiple objects to the same object because you can specify this same object as the proto key for these multiple objects, but you do not have multiple proto key in one object. So you have only one proto key, which means you can link your object with the proto using the proto key only to one another object. But you can use, for example, speaking 2. If this was some other speaking 3 object, you can, yeah, of course, whatever. Let's just leave code. And no, I'll 2, should be 2. So this is my destination object, right? So I can link speaking person 3 and person to the same object. We can do that, that's okay. However, I cannot, for example, specify an array of destinations in the proto. It doesn't work that way. So one object cannot link to multiple objects, but multiple objects can link to one single object. Okay.
I'll see.
So let's go with let's simplify things and let's go with only speaking person and or person. Now let's see what happens when speaking person, we console log this and this dot name. As you can see, we do not have the name key in speaking person. However, we have that key in the person. Now, what happens? What happens when we say speak?
Inquiries.
What I was saying like 10 minutes ago. The only thing that you should remember about this session, what was that?
It's the person that is this speak, which has no undefined here.
Please explain this code to me and tell me what that last undefined is. There is the name of the person. It's this console log. This name varchar is this console log. And what is this undefined?
This this dot name, this refers only to its object, which is speaking person. That is why in speaking
The question is, no, Guardian, the question is, there are 3 things logged on the screen. An object, a string, and an undefined. What is that undefined that is logged on the screen?
Isn't it the return value of the function?
What line? Just tell me the line.
23.
23.
Yeah.
So it's not the name of the person, it's line 23. Okay? Since the function speak returns undefined and I did console log person.speak, that console log will log an undefined. And that's, unfortunately, that's not what you would expect. I'm sorry. So again, one more time, as I was saying, if there is only one thing you should remember from this session, when you do something dot function call, if in your function you use the keyword this, then the value of that keyword will be whatever you did the dot on. Okay, so in this example, when you say person dot speak, now in speak we've used the keyword this. Now when we say person dot speak, the value of this will be the value of person, and as you can see, it actually what it is, right? Now what happens if I say speaking person dot speak?
That's and twice. Yeah, so it was undefined.
Now it will be your answer. Okay, because we actually do not have mainly key in speaking person. We don't have the prototype on that object to have to link to anything that has the name key. So now we will get another. Okay, so always remember when you do person.speak whatever dot whatever, the this keyword in that whatever function it is will be whatever you do that dot on. Okay, so that's the, if you remember that, like 90% of cases with the this keyword will be solved. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to emphasize this, because this is actually valuable information. You should just remember when you do person.speak, the value of this will be person. Second person.speak, the value of this will be second person. There are three ways to override this. You can say person.speak, call it in a special way and change the value of this. It is possible, but we're not overriding anything here. So the normal way it works, when you say person.speak, the value of this in the function speak will be the person. Okay.
So it was running it. Oops. Hey, sorry, I didn't understand completely. Is it this hard? I must keep going.
Even if you understand completely, you can still ask questions.
So now, speak this the person, and so this means console log person.name. But why is it been defined? Because person.name is varchar.
I didn't save the file. When I say, I did not save the file. As you can see on the dot here, I changed it. I changed the code, brought it back to the. Okay. So this is the code which give us the result there. Now I did a Control Z, but I did not save it. Now when I save the file, we will get varchar.
Okay. And console log. What did we apply to? We started from console log. What was inside it?
Never answered.
Oh, okay. So on line 23, we had another console console.log. So we had something like this, and the result was an object, a string, and an undefined. So the question was, what is that undefined that is logged?
But if you write speaking person instead of person, very safe. Is a name. Ill.
Okay.
Right? Why doesn't speak returns the name we're done.
Okay. So let's do this way. I will say speaking person dot speak. Okay. Let's remember. Okay, I have changed. Let's do it this way. Now I will just I'll create a new diagram. And that was it. Speaking person. Speaking person. And what I did here, I linked person to speaking person. So I will grab this arrow tool and I will connect person to speaking person. I will bring them slightly closer to, no, let's do this way. I will write proto here. So person is linked to speaking person via the proto keyword, which means whatever is not found here should be looked up here.
If it's not if the name is not found on speaking person, it doesn't go away back to person.
No, because person is connected to speaking person, not the other way around.
That is why it is undefined, because
Correct. Yes. When we do speaking person, that is exactly why we get undefined. Because you'll always look, the lookup works only in the forward direction. It does not kind of look back to see it.
but if we write person dot speak, we will have the name
Correct.
done, and if we try to console log it, we will see that.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. So let's start with this simple example, right? We start with speaking person. We do not have the __ proto __ property, which means the object speaking person is technically not linked to any other object. It actually is, but we don't care about that. We don't have the explicit connections between two objects we create. So again, the speaking person is not explicitly connected to other objects. So when you say speaking person dot speak, what will be the value of the keyword this?
Speaking person.
Correct, speaking person. Now, when we invoke this function, on the very first line, we will console log the object speaking person, as you can see here. Now, do we have a name key on this object? No, that's exactly why when we will do, in this case, the object, the keyword this would be exactly like this, okay? Like if you would do this, okay? So if you say console log speaking person, that's what you get. Now you say console log speaking person dot name. Do you have a key name on your speaking person? No, that's why you get the number. Of course, again, TypeScript tries to help us out, but if we would suppress that error, we would still see the undefined. Now, when you say person dot speak, the interesting part is that now person is connected to the speaking person via the proto keyword, which means when we try to access whatever key is not found in the person object, we will look up it in the speaking person because there is a link. If there was not a link, we'll just look it up in the person and just imagine we'll just return. Okay, so what we're trying to do right now, we're trying to access the speak key or to call the speak function on the person object. Do we have a function called speaking person object?
No.
No.
But in terms of connection,
Correct.
and installs speaking person, we take the speak function.
Correct. So we have we don't have the function called speak in the person object. However, we have the proto connection, which means we will be looking up that function in the prototype chain. And the object in the prototype chain is the speaking person, which has that function. So, by the way, now if I would do this, tell something, what do you think I will get? Are you sure? Something like
There were more.
pardon?
Error.
Error? Why would I?
Defined.
No such for
So we have.
Correct.
So you try to access something called the key called tell something. Do we have that key in person in the object? No. However, we have the prototype connection. We have the link. Do we have a key called tell something in speaking person? No. What is the result of that?
Undefined.
Correct. However, the result of person dot tell something would be undefined. However, when you do this, what you get? You get an error. You cannot call undefined. You cannot call null. Whatever. Okay. So let's come back to our sheets. Okay. Again.
And I
Sure.
Sure. So I think this will answer all the questions. So if we call person.speak, speak function is not available. So there is no speak property in person object. It purpose takes the speak function from the speaking person, and the function is invoked for person object, not for speaking person. That's why this keyword gets the name of person. That is,
That is exactly.
I think this was the part that was any confusing part, that we thought that speak function was invoked for speaking person. So I think that was the confusing part. That
Yeah. So I'm trying to go this like step by step to basically try to explain why it would.
it would be the same as we take the function and put it in the person, and like we will get this. Okay.
Correct. Correct. So again, of course, also explain it perfectly, but just to reiterate one more time, what happens here when we say person dot speak, we are looking for a key called speak in the object person. We don't have that, but we have the connection. We'll go up to the chain. We know that person is connected to the object person as speaking person, and we find that function in the speaking person, which means we can invoke it. However, we said person dot speak, which means that in this function, the keyword is what will be the value of this?
Cursor.
What will be the value of this? Of the keyword?
Object.
It will be person because we did what?
We link the object to the other.
No. The connection here doesn't have anything to do with. We did person dot.
Oh, there's a lot. And
Person dot. That's the important part, okay? So again, if we say speaking person dot speak,
this way, please.
the function speak is defined in the object. That's why we can call it. And the value of the keyword is defined by this dot.
So what is if it not be in the speak will be in the square brackets?
Oh.
We can
Oh, you mean something like this?
instead of dot. With
What do you think will happen?
Did you not try to correctly?
code.
So the same thing.
So it doesn't match
The behavior of the object doesn't change. It's kind of the same thing. So my point was, and I see where your question comes, because I kind of specifically said the dot. That's the okay. I did that because you usually don't use this, because this is just more things to type. You'll